Imagine building something so personal that your whole life feels welded to its success, right? That sounds dramatic, right? But that's exactly what I heard from a founder say about Cardano, and it stopped me in my tracks. So picture this, right? It's a sleepy Sunday. I'm half awake, skimming messages in our kind of free educational Discord server. Yeah, the one that I'm always talking about on here. And a friend he pings me, he says Charles's life, and he just said that his life, brand, legacy, it all rides on Cardano. So I blink, did he really say that? And then I tune in, and there it is, raw, unfiltered, resolved, right? And not a kind of press release, not a slick promo, it's just a stake in the ground. So I follow Cardano for a rather long time, as many of you know, at least to have my kind of patience tested, renewed, tested again, and then stretched like a pizza dough by a rookie. So hearing Charles kind of Hoskinson here lay out, with at least lay it all out with that kind of intensity, it hit differently. Because when a founder says, if this fails, I fail, well, that's not marketing. That's a man trying, at least tying his name to the mast and telling the storm, you move, right? And here's the bit that people don't love to admit, and that's that Cardano's had its awkward seasons, right? Where there were weeks, I guess, where it kind of felt like we were waiting for the next chapter of a fantasy series that might never ship. Delays, debates, a community split, between diehards and do somethings. So people called it Charles a kind of, or at least called Charles cancer to his own project at one point. And I remember reading that and thinking, that's not criticism, that's just venom, right? And yet, he didn't flinch. He said Cardano is his brainchild and he's not going to watch it burn. Now, that kind of responsibility cuts both ways, doesn't it? It inspires, but it also makes the failures feel heavier than lead. Now, mix in the history with Ethereum, and it's basically a sports rivalry with PhDs. Charles co-founded Ethereum, then came to the kind of philosophical kind of clash, commercial versus non-profit. The vision kind of forked, right? People picked sides. He left, founded Cardano, and the silent kind of scoreboard went up, right? Since then, the jabs have flown about governance, about consensus, about long-term viability. He's questioned whether Ethereum can endure another decade or so with the choices that it's made. Now, that's not a mild opinion. That's a warning flare. So, when he says he wants Cardano to win, even against Ethereum, that's not a cheap line, is it? That's a kind of pilgrimage, right? And the kind of mountain is rather steep here. Ethereum sits near the very top of the market. Cardano is still in the first pack behind it. So if ADA were to catch up, we're talking a monstrous climb then. Numbers like that don't show up by accident. Now, they actually show up when the technology stops whispering and it starts shouting. When products become habits, when builders don't just visit, they move in. Now, this is where my own story with Cardano gets messy, but in a good way. Now, I didn't buy a bag and just walk away. I learned the jargon. I watched the whiteboard sessions and I ran a little stake pool for, well, still going in fact. And you want to stake to our stake pool, you can check it out with the ticker Cheek. There's usually a link in the description or down in the Discord. Now, I listened to people who'd actually kind of shipped things on Cardano, and let me tell you what worked and, what kind of tripped them. I watched the ecosystem argue with itself, the painful, the necessary, and sometimes exhausting. But I never fully left, did I? Because every time I considered it, the mission tugged my sleeve. Peer-reviewed research, formal methods, a chain built to run without a cult of personality. And yet somehow, powered by personalities who refuse to be background characters. So let's talk about those broken windows then that Charles mentioned. Now, he owned that some were there. Internal kind of friction between developers and IOG slowed progress down. Smart contracts took longer than they wanted, or any of us wanted. Builders felt it, users felt it, the critics feasted on it. Then came a course of correction, right? One piece at a time. Lace, the light wallet that actually feels, light. Midnight, privacy that doesn't treat compliance like a dirty word. And Hydra, horizontal kind of scaling that turned from the kind of slide deck to real throughput, stress tested in live events like the Glacier drop. Not theory traffic, not promises, transactions. Now, I remember the first time that I saw Hydra move from wouldn't it be nice if to look what just happened. It gave me the same kind of chill that I felt when I sent my first on-chain transaction many years ago, and the network just didn't flinch. That's the quiet kind of milestone that the timeline snobs miss out. It's not fireworks, it's hum that grows. Now, I'm not here to sell you a fairy tale, am I? There's a gap between being technically elegant and being culturally kind of dominant, right? Now, Ethereum has momentum. It has developer gravity and a habit of shipping layer 2 lifeboats faster than you can scroll a thread. That's not nothing, but Charles's argument has always been that if you architect the base layer right, you don't need to invent seatbelts mid-flight, do you? That's a philosophy that you either believe in or you don't. Now, I happen to like planes with more than one engine. Do you? You can let me know in the comments below. Now, you know what else I like? Honesty. So let me be crystal clear. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always consult, or at least always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses. This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Now, while we're being transparent, here's a quick note. If I ever mention exchanges like Blowfin or BitGet, the links in the description are affiliate links that support the channel at no extra cost to yourself. That's how we fund the research, the interviews, the charts, the late night coffee that turns into these episodes. So you can check them out if you want. If you're looking for a new exchange, then the links down below are affiliate links that support us at no extra cost to yourself. But let's get back to the heart of this. Right, the reason that Charles's line about life, brand, and legacy hit me so is because it kind of puts a human face on blockchain, doesn't it? Right, we treat networks like machines and founders like mascots, but these people carry scars. Right, imagine getting removed from the project that you helped create, then choosing to spend your prime years trying to build something that you think can be sturdier, fairer, more predictable for builders. Imagine reading strangers say that you're the problem, while you pull all-nighters, shipping the very fixes that they asked for. Now, if that doesn't light a fire, then you're not paying attention, right? This space is full of toxic people. We know it, we see it, just check the comments down below. Now, does passion guarantee good decisions? Not always. Passion can make you fearless, and it can make you stubborn. Right? Now, I've had moments with Cardano where I wish the team would be, or at least would ship less elegantly and more quickly, just to kind of stop the ghost chain jokes from writing themselves, right? Then I remembered all the chains that moved fast, right, and patched later, and paid interest on technical debt for years. Speed is a thrill, reliability is a lifestyle. Now, the community sits right in the middle of that tug of war, doesn't it? On one side, the people who have weathered every delay, every tease, every soon, and still showed up with the code, ideas, and, teaching threads. And on the other side, you have the chorus of that kind of want headlines now. Both sides, they care, of course. Both sides are just tired. And somehow that tension keeps the project kind of honest. Right? A chain without critics is a cult. A chain without fans is a ghost town. Cardano has neither problem. So let's not pretend that the mission is small. Right? Displacing Ethereum requires more than just tech, doesn't it? It requires demand, at least it demands a wave of builders who choose Cardano first, not as a hedge, but as a home. It demands wallets that grandma can use, documentation that juniors can trust, and grants that don't feel like a scavenger hunt. It asks for wins that you can demo in 30 seconds, at least not just papers that you can cite, right? If we see all of that gather speed, then the climb stops looking like a fantasy and starts looking like a schedule, doesn't it? Now, I've seen all of this before in smaller circles, but it's worth saying here, decentralization with a heartbeat beats decentralization with a halo. Now, Cardano's governance hurts sometimes because people aren't props. They do in fact argue. They course correct at times. They refuse to rubber stamp things. That's messy, right? It's also how you end up with a network that survives its founders, right? The irony is rich here. To build a system that doesn't depend on Charles, you need Charles to care so much that he's willing to architect himself out of the single point of failure that we accuse every founder of being. Ironic, right? And what about that rivalry? Do I think that Vitalik loses sleep over Cardano? No idea. He probably reads math for breakfast and tweets about things that turns into research threads by lunchtime. But I do think that he pays attention, the same way that Formula One champions still glance at split times, right? Respect isn't admission of defeat. It's just awareness that no seat stays warm forever. And to be fair, Ethereum's community doesn't sit still either, does it? They experiment in public, they fix in public, and occasionally break in public. That's a culture worth respecting even when you believe that your stack is stronger. So where does that leave me today? Somewhere between stubborn and hopeful. I hold ADA, not because I expect magic or at least magic at sunrise, but because I've actually seen a pattern. I set a high bar. You miss it, raise it, clear it, repeat it. That rhythm frustrates traders and it trains builders. So if you want sprints, there are chains that will give you that sugar rush, of course. And if you want a marathon, then you look for shoes that won't fall apart at mile 20. And yes, I'm still in our free educational Discord, talking through the wins and the misses, linking the documents, helping newcomers find the on-ramps that make sense. So if you want a company on this road, or at least you want company on this road, then you want to jump in there, right? The best ideas that I've had in this space started as dumb questions that were asked out loud. So let me level with you all on the numbers again, because the numbers don't care about how we feel, do they? For Cardano to stand shoulder to shoulder with Ethereum, then we need a cascade of adoption waves, not a single headline. We need a year where throughput conversations get boring because the app layer is buzzing. We need a month where a developer mentoring chain on Cardano isn't news, it's just habit. We need a week where a mainstream brand launches on Cardano for reasons that read like common sense, not just daring. Now those shifts look tiny close up, right? Then one day you blink and, well, the scoreboard changes while everyone was busy just making breakfast. And if you're here now, then you might be thinking, why is this guy so emotionally glued to a bunch of code? Fair enough. And it's because the code is just part that we can screenshot. The real story is actually the people, it's you guys, right? It's the engineers who could double their salary elsewhere, but stay here because they like building with grown-ups instead of children. Entrepreneurs who pick the slow and road because they believe in compounding trust. And yes, a founder who stands in front of a crowd and says, "My life rides on this." That's either madness or it's courage. Maybe it's a bit of both. but it's never boring. Now, here's a gentle nudge for anyone who still hears ghost chain, right? Ghosts don't push upgrades, do they? Audit contracts, ship wallets, or argue about parameters tweaks at 2 a.m. in the morning. Ghosts don't run community spaces where ideas get hammered into shape. Ghosts don't build Hydra heads and then feed them transactions just to see if they bite, right? Whatever Cardano is, it is not a ghost. It is a construction site with the lights on. So, where could it go from here? Now, if Midnight delivers privacy in a way that regulators can live with, well, that's a door opening. And if Lace keeps smoothing the rough edges and third-party wallets keep matching pace, well, that's a welcoming mat getting thicker. If Hydra keeps proving that throughput, at least at the edges, kind of makes the center feel weightless, well, that's the commute getting shorter for every app. So if governance lands with real teeth, funding, accountability, interaction, well, then Cardano stops being a promise and becomes a habit. Will that be enough to beat Ethereum? Beat is a pretty funny word. In sport, you beat someone when the clock stops. In networks, the clock never stops. So maybe the win isn't flipping a market cap snapshot. Maybe it's forcing everyone to raise their standards. Maybe the greatest compliment that Cardano ever gets is invisible. Other chains fix things because Cardano refused to treat safety like a speed bump. If that's the legacy, then I would take it. But I won't pretend to be sad if the scoreboard swung the other way, even for a quarter. I'd be lying if I said the idea of ADA stomping across the top 10 doesn't make me grin like a teenager with a new set of keys. If that day comes, I'll be one filming a shaky victory lap while pretending to keep my voice steady. Until then, of course, I'm going to keep doing what I've always done. I'm going to watch the commits, test the tools, listen to the builders, call out the nonsense when I see it, and cheer when the numbers don't flinch under pressure. That is how you can tell signal from noise, not by the quotes that trend for an afternoon, but by the features that survive on a Monday morning. So here's my final thought for you guys, shaped by more coffee than I'd like to admit. When Charles says that his life rides on Cardano, I hear a builder choosing stakes over comfort. I hear a guy who's couldn't, or at least could have, disappeared into the quiet wealth and didn't. You can argue with his tone, his timelines, his tweets, but you can't argue with the simple truth that he showed up when it was easier not to. And that counts. So, if you want to walk this road with me, waltz, wins, and weekends spent watching node logs, then come and hang with us in Discord. Ask your questions, share what you're shipping, challenge the ideas without torching people. That's how ecosystems get stronger, not with slogans, but with sleeves rolled up, just like this, right? And if you're still here, thanks for giving me at least an hourglass worth of attention. I don't take that lightly by any stretch of the imagination. Now, let's see if the next milestone kind of shows up like a whisper or kicks in the door. Either way, I'm going to be here when it lands. So tap that subscribe and watch the next video. It's totally your call.